Welcome to A Date with Darkness podcast, where I will be discussing the impact of hurtful and abusive relationships and how to overcome them so that you can move through your pain and get to the kind of healthy relationships you want, need, and deserve. I'm Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed psychotherapist based in California. While I hope that you find this podcast educational and informational, please note it should not be substituted for treatment with a licensed mental health professional. Also, due to the nature of the podcast, some of the information presented on the show can be sensitive to some of my listeners, so please note that listener discretion is advised. Hello and welcome back to A Date with Darkness podcast. I'm super excited to be here chatting with you today, and I want to wish you happy Valentine's Day, happy Valentine's week, happy Valentine's month. So this is the month of love, or supposed to be love, toxic love, all of the above. And this is the second installment of the Kiss of Death series. And I definitely want to hop right on in there and talk about married men who portray themselves as single in dating, right? And so they misrepresent themselves and they specifically target single people with their toxic behavior. And I want to give a shout out to the spiritual whistleblower for giving me the inspiration to do this podcast. But I wanted to do this podcast for a number of reasons. One is because I've done a number of interviews and things like that, New York Times and the news and things like that around dating and dating trends and toxic dating behaviors and things like that. So this has been a topic of conversation that I have been doing for the past few weeks. And secondly, just in thinking about my own dating history in the past and some of the stuff that I've even had to deal with. And number three, now that dating has changed most recently, and I have a lot of clients that have just dealt with a lot of stuff, right? Namely, this being one of the topics, right? And so I felt like it's important to talk about, and I'm going to get a little bit into the dating trends, but not as much because I'm going to try to get this quick and to the point about today's topic. With the introduction of online dating and social media specifically, and particularly during COVID, online dating increased exponentially because of social distancing and isolation, right? And so a lot more people were more apt to reach out online because they were social distancing. And so it, basically online dating and things like that increased tenfold, and it became, even more popular than it was. Although with the introduction of the internet, social media is definitely been an integral part of our lives, and specifically our dating lives. It's almost like, when you're dating now, there's three people or three things in the relationships. It's you, the other person, and social media, right? So it's very rare, whether that social media be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or some other sort of social media platform, or maybe even Hinge, Tinder, or, whatever other sort of dating app. It's not uncommon for there to be some sort of element of social media involved in dating in recent times. And it's almost like, yeah, I'm dating you and I'm dating social media too, if that's one way to look at it. But I specifically wanted to talk about married men, hiding their true identity on the internet and targeting single people in their dating practices, because I think that that's becoming more and more common. And yes, I know that there's married women who do it too, and there's other people that do it too. But this is going to be the topic for today's discussion, and maybe we can expand it a little bit more to encompass other people. And so first I want to talk about, some of the pros and cons of dating. And it's not going to be an extensive list, but I want to talk a little bit about the pros and cons and how it sort of factors into, people sort of hiding their identity on the internet. So to start with the pros, again, you know, when you have things like COVID, that were sort of popping off, you know, chatting on the internet, meeting people online was the way to go for a lot of people. And you have thousands, millions and thousands of people at your fingertips, right? And you never even have to leave your home, right? You can take these pictures, or you can upload pictures, write a quick little profile, and poof, you have the best representation of yourself right there online, for all the world to see. And you don't even have to leave your home. You could literally be looking for a date and be at home, in your sweats and hair rollers and things like that. So you don't have to be dressed up. You don't, and they get to see the best version of you on the internet. And, and I think that that's the biggest thing, is like and not only that, it's online dating in particular has become almost like a buffet of people, right? You kind of get to swipe, you look, and you see what the bio says, and you see what you guys have in common. And so it's kind of like you're going through this like buffet of people to find what your interests are, right? And then, social media and other platforms also make it easy to like digitally research people. You can like look at people's pictures or images. You can find more research about a person on their social media account. I mean, there's a whole TikTok account dedicated to a woman finding out who someone is and where they live based off of their photo, nothing else. Right? If they don't have their information easily accessible, and she does it in like 2 minutes and like shows how she does it. So there's like a whole TikTok account on that. So it's very interesting. Just sort of this curiosity that has evolved, and just how you could sort of research and Google people and find out more about people, right? And then on the con side, just as easy as it is to research people, it's also easy for people to hide who they truly are. I mean, you really don't even, you can create an online profile. You don't really have to use your real picture. You don't really have to use your real name. And when you have people that are hiding on the internet, then you have the introduction of predatory behavior. And I think when you have a married man, that's going after, that misrepresents who he is and lies about being married, is going, is out there trying to date people that are single, and sort of involving them into his toxicity. That to me is predatory behavior, which can also be a pro or a con. But, if you're married and you're portraying yourself as single, another, con, would be that you could date multiple people at the same time, and no one would ever have to know about it outside of your marriage, right? And it would be a pro for single people, because I think when you're dating is not an exclusive relationship. So you can date as many people as you want, except for when you're married. You shouldn't really be doing that. And so I want to talk a little bit about, people that, and I think this is a very narcissistic behavior, that people engage in when they do that. When they misrepresent, you lead people on, and you lie about who you are. It's a narcissistic behavior. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're told, that you have narcissistic personality, but it's definitely a narcissistic trait, to be misrepresent who you are and manipulate people, and just sort of lying, right? And that pathological lying, right? Because you have to keep up a lie. Typically, most people do, or there are some men who are married that tell people that they're married, but then they sort of create this whole false story around their marriage too. It could be that I'm married, but it's oh so terrible, or she treats me so bad, and I'm going through this, or I'm leaving this person. Meanwhile, they're going home and jumping in bed every night with that person, right? So I'm gonna give a couple reasons, why men are doing this, right? And again, this could be applicable to all people, but just for this show, I'm going to be talking about men specifically because a lot of the folks that I work with are women. I also do work with women, but the women that I'm working with, this is one of their complaints, right? Okay, so, and I'm looking at my list to kind of make sure that I don't leave anything off, as you guys know. So again, when you have a person that has this trait, and it's this narcissistic behavior, you have to think about why they're doing this. They want to feed their ego and they want this constant validation. If you think about the honeymoon stage in dating, which is what most people typically categorize as like the first 6 months. Everything is gravy. Everything glitters. It's sparkly. It's shiny. It's wonderful. You can do no wrong. I have a deep adoration. I'm liking you and I'm liking where this is going and it feels good. And I'm presenting the best version of myself. Typically, both people are presenting the best versions of themselves in the honeymoon stage, and you're getting to know each other. And this is oftentimes too when a lot of love bombing takes place, right? Because you're presenting the best version, but love bombing also takes place during the first 6 months, where you're putting people up on a pedestal or you're idolizing them, and you're saying, oh, this is the best love, I feel so safe and I feel so comfortable with you and I've never had that before, and you do this for me and you do that for me, and none of my other relationships have ever been like this, and I could see you being the mother of my children, or I could see myself marrying you and I wish I would have married you first, and la 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 la, right? All of those sort of sweet nothings, and extravagant displays of affection and love. This is where love bombing takes place, right? And so it's, that when you have that honeymoon phase and you have these men that are out there looking to definitely stroke their ego, but they want that consistent validation, right? Because at home, when you're married, you may be, especially if you've been married for a long time, 10, 15, 20 years, whatever the case may be, or even 5 years, you've sort of settled into a routine. Things may be monotonous, but you've established a routine. It could be intimacy as a routine, picking up the kids as a routine, going to work as a routine. And so they may be feeling bored and they may want to feel like, hey, I want to be the star in someone's eyes. I want to be the star of my own show. And I want to have this life where I escape into this fantasy where, I can feel good about myself and I can have all of this attention onto myself, as opposed to, what I've got going on at home. And I want this bit of excitement. So therefore, I'm going to misrepresent myself and start a whole new life outside of this marriage. Right. And so that could be reason number one. Is it's an ego boost. It helps stroke them and makes them feel good about themselves, purely selfish, right? But there's also people that are also in toxic marriages where they may have arrangements where they're cheating on each other, or they may be in constant high conflict, or there could be some abuse going on, or they may even be in a relationship that's love deprived. And I have worked with a lot of men and women who are in relationships where there's no real love in the relationships. You may just be living with each other as roommates. You might even be sleeping in separate rooms, or you're just kind of doing everything mechanically, or just sort of monotonously, there's no connection, right? And there's people that I've worked with that are in love deprived marriages and relationships, and they're also in touch deprived relationships also, where we don't even touch each other anymore. There's no physical sensual intimacy, and if so there are people that are like that, or in marriages that are like that, and they may be feeling like, hey, I just want to get my needs met. This isn't going to happen in my marriage, right? But I am loyal to this dysfunctional, unhappy marriage. for whatever reason, I'm not leaving the woman that I'm married to. There's a sense of obligation. It could be because there's kids there. It could be because our families know each other. It could be because, I take care of the person that I'm with. It could be because finances or real estate or other things are involved. It could be a number of reasons why they feel a sense of loyalty to a marriage that is very loveless, or that they don't feel happy in. I heard the other day, I was listening to somebody, I think it was on TikTok, where they were talking about how men pick their partners that they marry based on logic. Women pick their partners that they marry based on love. And, logic could be this person is in close proximity to me. This person makes sense. This person, I don't ever have to be worried about this person cheating on me. I don't ever have to worry about this person attracting any sort of negative attention. However, once they get married to this person, they realize that they're not truly happy, right? And they're not getting their needs met. It still does not excuse their toxic behavior, right? So whatever the reason is, you are still married, and you're still misrepresenting yourself. Um, and so they may feel like, if my needs aren't getting met, I just want to have something for myself where I'm going to have a different life where I'm just purely getting my needs met. And those needs may be sexual, those needs may be emotional. Like I want to have somebody that I could just talk to and have a good time with, right? And I want to have that for myself because I'm not going to get that. And in a way, that person that they misrepresent themselves to, or that they're having this extramarital affair with, what you become is a transitional object. You actually make it easier for that person to stay in a dysfunctional marriage because they're energetically, they're pulling from you, and that's almost like, pulling from you gives them the boost to stay in that dysfunctional marriage, unbeknownst to you, right? If you're the single person, you don't know that, but that's basically what you're doing. You're stabilizing this person, and then that sort of allows them to have all of their fun and whatever they need. They're using you for that, and meanwhile they're loyal to that person that they're not happy with. Other reason why married men lead people on and portray themselves as single and sort of engage in these relationships with single people. It goes back to what I was talking about in terms of online dating pools being almost like a buffet where you can pick and choose. There's so many people to pick and choose from. When there is an abundance of something to choose from, people automatically become more wasteful. I'm not saying it's right, and I'm certainly not excusing it. But what I've seen is this: when people meet other people now, because there's so many options to choose from, people are viewed as disposable. It's almost like you are treated like you're not a human being because, there's so many options to choose from. I don't even have to worry about being respectful of you because there's so many options to choose from. And I don't respect you, one, because I don't respect myself. But if I could dip out on you and I can get another two of you down the way somewhere, I'm not going to be as invested. I'm not going to be worried about you and what we have, because there's, wherever there's one person to choose from, there's 10,000 more other people to choose from, right? And so, this is also why things like behaviors like ghosting has become more popular, right? Because there's an abundance of people to choose from. And I think whenever you have an abundance, which social media and those third-party dating apps introduces like an abundance of people, you can just swipe now and you have like all these people at your fingertips. Then you have people that are going to be more irresponsible, that are not as considerate and feel like they can just kind of show up and treat you any type of way. And so that's what you're going to see here, right? People are disposable, therefore I can do what I want and I can not worry about the consequences and I can bounce out tomorrow. If I feel like I don't want to see you anymore, I can be gone tomorrow, right? And not even have to worry about it ever again. How do you know that someone that you were interested in may be married, right? Or what are some of the signs that the person that you're dating is potentially married? One of the first signs is that they don't ever introduce you to their people, right? The people in their life, the important people in their lives, or they make excuses why they can't ever introduce you. Oh, this person is nuts, or they're controlling, or they're possessive, or they don't really like any of the women that I bring home. Some derivative of that, right? And so they don't ever introduce you to anybody in their lives, right? Or if they do, um this could work two ways. So it could work like they don't ever introduce you to people in their lives, or they could introduce you to people in their lives, and people in their lives are comfortable with that person bringing people in and out. So they're comfortable with that people dating multiple people, even though they're married. And you have some situations where you have families that will keep secrets, or families that will disregard you because, okay, you're one of like 1,000 women that I've met, or people that have come through here, right? So you have no significance, right? So family can either be dismissive, or two, if they're not really interested or invested in you, they're not going to include you in any part of their life. No one really knows about you. It's just a relationship between you and him. The second red flag is they still have communications with their supposed ex, right? The person that they're telling you that it's their ex, but it's really not. And that communication is frequent or regular, or it's late night, or at a inappropriate, what many of us would be considering inappropriate, or that person, inappropriate times, or that the married person is always sort of answering their calls or their text messages, no matter what time of day it is or what it's about, right? And they're going to always sort of step out and take those conversations privately. And they may tell you that, oh, this person and I, we don't get along, or whatever. Or, well, you're always answering their calls or things like that. And it doesn't matter if you guys are intimate, or what the case is. If they're always taking the calls and communicating with a person whom they say is their ex. And on another note, if they say that they have female friends or someone like that, that's sort of out in the periphery, that could also be another red flag. If they say that they have women that they're close with and they're close friends with. Another thing that married men tend to do when they're hiding their identity as being married is they may give you a fake name, and this fake name could be their middle name, or it can be a name that they've made up altogether. And that's so that once again, they're not very searchable, right? You search that person under their middle name or under that fake name, you are not going to necessarily find them under the alias that they've given you, right? So they're deliberately trying to hide that so that you can't find information on them. And another thing that they may do, which is very easy to do now, is give you a fake number, right? A fake number, or even a fake address. And there's so many apps where you can hide your number, right? And it could ring like a real phone, like Text Now, or Google Voice, or whatever the case may be, where you could literally be on the app. Where you could literally be texting this person on an app, and you don't necessarily have their real number. If you are in their phone, if you're under this app, your name is probably not saved on their phone as under your name. You're probably saved under a guy's name like Jake, James, Mike, whatever. So you're going to be saved as a male name and not actually under who you are under this app. And so you won't be discovered, right? And so your text messages won't necessarily be saved. Your pictures and things like that won't be saved, which also brings up another point. Married men usually don't want a lot of pictures. They don't want to be posted on social media. So, very similar to how they may be hiding you, they don't want you to sort of spread information about them, right? And sort of, tell people. And, part of that is they may choose to engage with people who are out of town or, only have access to them on limited basis. And thirdly, they may not, whenever you're talking, it's always a good idea to get to know who the person that you're dealing with is by having deep, meaningful conversations, right? And while you may have some good conversations with a man who is married, typically there are going to be some questions that they're rather evasive about answering, or their answer may be a little strange, or they may not get too deep in certain conversations, right? Or they may start to stutter and stammer when it comes around certain things that have to do with relationship or marriage, or there could be some sort of hesitation there, or they may talk too much about certain things. And a lot of times whenever, I do forensic interviewing, and sometimes when people give too much information, that's a clue that they could be lying or misrepresenting something. Um, Again, when a married man is, trying to date a woman that's single and going after a person that's single, they want everything to be on their terms, right? And so typically what that means is they have limited times that they could see you, that they could talk to you, right? And they may only be able to see you in certain places. So they may be only able to go out to see you, or they have to meet you at your place. And so they may be hiding that, or hiding where they live, or they don't necessarily want you at their house at certain times, or you may only be able to come to their house at certain times of the day, or they may only be able to communicate with you during certain times of the day. So you're not going to be able to talk late, or they may only be outside when they're talking to you outside, or, doing something, or at work when they're talking to you. So they can't talk. You can't just spontaneously call them and check in, if you need help or something like that. They're not very accessible to you outside of their times when they feel like they can be available. And so it's not uncommon for married men to disappear, just disappear without explanation. And even their disappearing acts could be, and especially often is, on holidays, birthdays, special occasions. They're not going to typically be around because, why? They are spending that time with their family. But they communicate on their terms, and they only spend time with you on their terms as well. So a lot of times what married men will do, toxic married men that are dating single people, is that they breadcrumb you. So they make promises with no follow through here. And they tell you everything that they they tell you everything that you want to hear so that they can get what they want to get from you. It's purely a manipulation tactic. If they promise you all these things, even though they are lying through their teeth, you're going to have sex with them. It sounds good, it feels good. And things are going to go the way that they think it should in the relationship, knowing full damn well they have no intention of ever delivering on those false promises. Right. So that's another thing. And then, another thing, and this kind of goes back to on their being on their terms in terms of timing, is that, a lot of times they will start out talking about how they work a lot, or that they're always busy. And when someone is telling you, especially in dating, that, hey, I'm always busy, what you need to be doing is you need to be running for the hills, because basically they're setting it up so that they could say, hey, don't expect me to be around too much. I'm telling you that I'm always busy and that I'm preparing you mentally. This is manipulation. I'm preparing you mentally because I know that I'm not going to, I'm not going to, I don't want you to invest too much time. And this kind of offers, it's almost like a warning label offering for me to say, hey, you know what? Don't expect me to be around too much, or, I'm going to always default back on this excuse that I'm so busy, with work or with childcare or something else, that don't ever expect me to make time for you. No, that's BS. If someone wants to be with you, they're going to make time with you. They're going to prioritize making time for you. And then they're going to communicate that to you. And one last thing that I'll mention here is that when a married man is pursuing single women and trying to pull them into their toxic mess, is that there's typically, you're probably not the first rodeo. And what that means is there's probably a string of other relationships with other women that they've done this to, and this is something that they're used to doing. And those relationships are typically not long term. Those women may have figured it out that this man was married, and so they figured it out. And so these string of other relationships mysteriously end, and a lot of times you may get like a vague response. Oh, they just realized I was too busy when this relationship ended. And so again, it's gonna seem like these relationships just sort of withered in the wind, or they're not sure what really happened, and there's going to be a huge question mark around that. So it's going to be very vague. So what should you do if you are a single woman that has sort of been bamboozled or hoodwinked or tricked or manipulated by a man who's married? First of all, I would say, if you were led on, or if you were misled, I would say first thing is to not blame yourself, right? Because this person was intentionally deceptive and manipulative towards you. You did nothing wrong. So making sure that you extend yourself grace, that you're not blaming yourself for what happened. These things are becoming increasingly common with social media and online dating. It is so common now. In fact, it is so common now that they've actually created, I don't know if you've seen it, Facebook groups where they post pictures and things like that of men who are dating or are doing this and scamming women. It's called, it could be called, Are We Dating the Same Guy? Or some derivative of that. And you could look that up in your city, and maybe you don't have it in your city, maybe create that if you've been manipulated there. A lot of people seem to find that helpful, where women seek advice and they sort of warn each other about men who are manipulating them and sort of giving them these false truths, right? So I would say definitely extending yourself grace. Secondly, I kind of mentioned, is getting some support around what you're going through. It's a super painful experience. Sometimes this manipulation can go on for a number of months once you're already attached or you've already been intimate in the relationship. So getting some support through friends and loved ones and therapy and things like that would definitely be super helpful. And thirdly, I want to mention that this doesn't go in any sort of particular sequence, but thirdly, definitely end things with that married man. When someone's married and they're hiding a part of their life from you, you're hurting people, whether you want to or not. There's people involved that could be potentially hurt, if there's children or whatever. You don't know what the case may be, and you don't know what he's got going on at home. And you certainly want to make sure that you're not getting caught up in that mess, because things could definitely escalate should the other person find out about it. I've seen things whereas the wife may find out about other women and may come up to their job and like have this sort of blowout, or call people and make reports and do all these things. I've seen things get really ugly and really nasty and can be actually even dangerous at times with people who kind of gotten themselves unknowingly caught up in situations where a person was lied about, or a woman may call you and wants to harass you about, what their husband is doing, and you've unknowingly been caught up in that. So I would say cut ties. I don't care what type of sweet nothings this person has told you. If they've lied to you, cut it out, because this can definitely harm you more than it can help you. Feeling good, you can feel good for 5 minutes, 5 months, but it only takes a few minutes for some real harm and damage to be done. So cut your losses and let that go would be my advice. It would be also just thinking about, whenever these sort of things happen, going back and thinking about, and I'm just going to straight shoot you here, just think about yourself, and as you reflect on this relationship, how it started and its evolution, think about, were there any signs? Were there any sort of red flags? And think about what you can do to sort of protect yourself going forward from this type of thing happening again. And that could be something like, when you're dating a married man, everything is on his terms, and maybe you didn't necessarily want to do things that way, but you went along with it because you really like this guy, and so you said, forget all my boundaries, I'm going to go with this because this man has got me feeling so good. So go back and sort of reevaluate that, and it's like, no, I should hold steadfast to my boundaries, or I should have recognized early on that this person wasn't meeting my needs, and I should have said, you know what, this isn't working for me because you're not meeting my needs, and I'm going to have to step away, or I'm going to have to give this relationship distance, even without you knowing all the facts. You could just sort of act on what needs of yours aren't being met, or some things that you're noticing, and that you could be noticing something like, this person is deceptive. Like, you know what, I'm noticing that this is deceptive, that you've been deceptive, or you've told me different things, and I'm not really comfortable with that. And I don't really like people in my life that I can't trust. Or, going forward, you might only want to involve yourself with people that you meet their community, right? You only want to get intimate with people once you meet their community, and can say that you're dating and take this person seriously once you meet his network of people, right? Or, just whatever the case may be, because everybody's situation is different, and I'm throwing out generalities here, right? Okay, so those would be some of the things that I would recommend. And I would recommend definitely just sort of loving on yourself. And I also recommend that you do not take whatever hurt or pain or distrust this situation has caused you to, and apply it to everyone. I think, and what I mean by that, a lot of times when people get hurt, or they find out that they've been lied to, they apply it to a group of people, and it's not uncommon for people to say all men are this or all women are that. And I would strongly encourage you not to do that, and look for examples of people who do not fit the criteria of what you're thinking. It's okay to be hurt. It's not okay to make these general broad stroke statements, right? And especially if this is a pattern that continues to reoccur with you, I would definitely encourage you to seek out therapy and see what's going on with you, that these are the types of people that you are currently attracting in your life, right? And so those would be some tips that I would strongly recommend to you. And also, just maybe even take an evaluation and stock about how your dating practices are with men, dating and friendship practices are. Not saying that there's anything wrong with them, but just sort of talking and thinking about what those look like for you, and what those behavior patterns have been, and just examining your views on men. Like, there's people that I work with that want to date men and want to be married, but they don't actually like men, or they feel afraid of men, or they have like some sort of negative stereotypes about men. And so just sort of examining that and making sure that there's none of that going on around. And then thinking about going forward, again, what sort of practices you want to include in dating. I cannot express that enough, because you want each dating experience, and dating will cause you some pain, right? You want to learn and grow from it, and you don't want to repeat what's happening in your dating life. And you, most importantly, you want to stay safe out there. You want to be very clear about what your boundaries and your needs are and stick to them. Another thing that is very common for people to do is, especially if you haven't dated in a while, or you're not used to dating, is that once you start dating someone, or once you start liking someone that you're dating, right, you will sort of fill in the blanks for behavior that is unacceptable, right? You will just lose all of your boundaries, and you'll start to fill in the blanks and make excuses for poor or bad behavior. And so I want to make sure that you're not doing that, and that you're taking care of yourself. And of course, if you are interested in finding out more or getting more like intense one-on-one coaching, you could definitely contact me below via the link in the show notes. And I want to wish you guys all love and blessings. And I hope that this month that you are taking the time to love on yourselves, take care of yourselves. And until next time, you guys, be well. See you next time.